Hi, I'm Mark Blomley, and these are the 5 things you must do right now as a business owner to get through this crisis. How you respond is going to determine whether your business is successful or unsuccessful. It's going to determine your financial success, both now and for many years to come. This COVID-19 crisis caught us by surprise, although many of us knew and understood that there was going to be some economic downturn coming very soon. It just happened a lot quicker, a lot faster than any of us predicted. So that's why it's so important right now for you to take this opportunity and start to plan, start to react, start to get the things in place right now that you need to get through this crisis. If you don't already know me, I've been around in running businesses for the last 15 years. That means that I went through the 2007-2008 economic downturn. I made a lot of mistakes during that time. There's a lot of things that I wish I could change and I would do differently now, and I'm currently doing with my business. And that's why I've put this video together. I think it's so important for you not to have that emotional reaction and you responding emotionally and out of stress and fear over the next 6, 12, 18 months, however long this is going to take. It's so important to start to look at things logically, start to put some thresholds in place, and start to understand your business on an extent that you wouldn't be doing already. So, without further ado, let's get stuck in. Let's go through the process that I'm going through with my clients now, and that I'm going through personally to set my finances up and my business up over the next 6 to 18 months. So the first thing you must do as a business owner is to become self-aware. And there's generally two paths I've found that business owners go down at this point in a crisis. And that's, number one, is that you become overly optimistic. And to be fair, this was me in 2008. So what that means is, logically, we know that we're going to take a hit to our revenues. We know that there's a crisis around. We know that there's a lot of fear, but our response to that is try to keep our business as the same as possible and for as long as possible. So to take you back to 2008, what I did there is, as a service-based business, my number one overhead was my staff, and I didn't want to fire them. As a business owner, none of us do. However, I held on for too long, I lost all my cash reserves, and then as a result, I came out of it in a very negative position. So, if that's your stance right now, you need to become aware of that, and you need to put some safeguards in place, which I'm about to talk to in step 2, to ensure that, hey, there are going to be some decisions that are really hard to make, and this is the threshold that you need to put in place and make those decisions straight away. So that's what I'm going to go through in the next step. The flip side is the pessimist. What the pessimist does is they immediately start to put off staff, they decrease expenses, they might get rid of their premises overhead, whatever it might be, completely eliminate advertising, they completely pull back, and they're left with a shell of a business. Now, while that sounds smarter than the optimist, in fact, you need to position yourself to put your business in the best possible point at the end of this crisis, and hopefully identifying opportunities to grow the business. Yes, it's harder, but there are opportunities to go through, and that's what I'm going to go through with you a little bit later today as well. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the pessimist is taking obviously the other slant, but they need to ensure that there's still a business round to be able to accelerate when you find those opportunities or when this economy turns around. So, what are you? Identify what your reaction has been so far and start to become aware of that, and I'm going to help you to plan around that in the next step. The next step, of course, is to plan. Okay, so how do you go about planning? Firstly, when you're planning for your business, first thing you need to do right now is go and look at all your expenses. Do a massive stock take, go back through the last month's financials, go back through your bank statements, see where you're spending money now. Immediately, what you need to cut out are things like subscriptions. Think about any cost that's currently in the business, and that might be as small as $150, $100 per month. If you can find that cost and find a way to eliminate that or to work around it, that is going to be a key solution right now. Obviously, then look at discretionary spending, look at what your staff are spending on, get rid of their credit cards, just pull back as much as you can to make sure that you're getting rid of all that discretionary expenses straight away. From there, what we're left with is the shell of the key of your business, what it takes to run your business at the moment, minusing all that discretionary spending that you used to have. We're getting rid of that. You've got what's left. There's a staff, premises, IT services, that sort of stuff. So that's your monthly expense now. What we now need to do is look at our revenues. Okay, what's coming in at the moment? We're looking at that. We need to be looking at that weekly, if not daily. Just look at what's happening. It depends on the business that you are. So if you're more of a retail business, you can look at this daily and go, okay, we can see our sales dropping. Alongside of our revenues, so obviously we're monitoring that as it goes. We know about our expenses are up here, our revenues are going like that, or they might be going like this. Whatever it might be, you need to become aware of that. So we've got our revenue, we've got our expenses. We've also got, obviously, our cash reserves. And as an example, we might have 3 months cash in the bank to be able to pay our expenses for 3 months. So what you need to do now is think about what's your appetite for risk at this time. What do you want to come out? We'll project to 12 months. How much money do you want to have in that account as a minimum after the next 12 months? Obviously, it needs to be less than 0. But as an example, you might say, okay, I want at least 1 month's to be able to pay 1 month's expenses in 12 months' time, which is a good goal. So in other words, we can spend 2 months of cash flow to be able to keep ourselves elevated during this time, keep ourselves in business during this time. That's a key thing we need to know. So we got that. So now we can start to set some thresholds around when our revenues are dropping too low, that is going to churn through those that cash reserves too quickly. So as an example, if we're 2 months down the track and we've burnt through 1 month of that already, 1 month of our cash reserves already, then we know that's when we need to start to fire staff, to change our premises, whatever we need to do at that time. And you need to set, okay, go through and set at each level. When we're getting to this level, we need to get rid of these 2 positions, staffing positions, we need to offload those staff, and then we can continue to function. Have a plan over the next 12 months, or when you're hitting those different thresholds, you're chewing through that cash too quickly, that's when you need to make the decisions. See, what we're doing here is we're taking the emotion out of it, we're putting logic into it, we're planning, and we're getting through it. That's what you need to do right now. Okay, so that's step 2. Step 3 is we can start to analyze. We know what we can control within our business. We know what we're going to be trying to change. We've done that, so we're comfortable. We should feel like we're more in control now. The next step is we can start to identify problems that our target market is now facing. So, for example, So if I'm in the fitness industry, for instance, currently in Australia and the US, fitness centers are shut. So that market of people that ordinarily would go to a gym now has nowhere to go. So there's a couple of ways around this. There's a problem that we're now seeing there. The problem is that those people still need to exercise. So how can we service those people? If you start to look at it that way, you can start to see, okay, yes, we need to find a way to really engage those people. In particular, it's those people that aren't self-sufficient in how they exercise. They rely on people to engage them, to motivate them. So we need to find a way, whether it's online, whether there's still some opportunity there to engage them outside, or maybe it's something completely different. Come up with new ways that you can solve the problem of that target market. This is occurring in all markets at the moment. People aren't just losing the need or desire to do certain things. It's just, how can you deliver upon that? So that's the problem. The other way to view it is through step 4, which is identifying new opportunities. So if we take a hairdresser, for example, people still need their haircut, right? But people are in fear at the moment. So what is the opportunity that no one else is doing? Most people are just sitting there and waiting for people to come in the door as a hairdresser. How can you go to them? How can you maybe do it outdoors? How can you eliminate the risk? How can you create an opportunity to provide that service or that product, whatever industry you're in? What's the opportunity to provide that in a different way? Start to look at it from that angle. So, 2 key things that we're doing externally there is we're identifying the problems of our target market and then identifying the opportunities which now exist as a result of this crisis. That's simply that once you start to identify it this way, you can start to see how you need to move and pivot, because people don't lose all that need, or yes, there's some needs that there's obviously going to be less of a pool there of people that want those services, that want you to provide certain things, but there's still people there that want them. So it's about you finding the opportunities to do that and the problems of your target market. And number five is that if you can, you need to be advertising right now. Some of the biggest companies in the world right now, Microsoft for instance, Facebook, etc., they were created in times of economic downturn. You should take heart from that. This is where you can really take hold of a market and make it your own. If you have the money to advertise, now is the time to do it, because your competitors won't be. Your competitors are falling away. They're stopping their advertising. They're becoming pessimistic, or if they're optimistic, they're spending their money on staffing. If you can spend money on advertising, do that right now, because you're going to start to dominate. Now is the time to do it, if you can. So if you think of it this way, if you've got 2 companies, Coca-Cola and Pepsi for instance, and one of them decides not to advertise and one of them does, what's going to be the result over the next 18 months? You can be sure that the one that decided to advertise is going to absolutely dominate that market, and that's what you've got the opportunity to do right now. So I want to leave you on that note. I want you to start to look at what's going on internally in your business. Start to logically put those steps in place that you need. On the flip side, you also need to look at what's happening externally. What are people doing? What are they afraid of? What problems do they now have? and what opportunities are arising out of the change in the environment at the moment. Now, to do this individually, it does take quite some standing back, but at the moment I want to help you to do that. So right now on this page, you can sign up for a free business health check with me, and I'll take you through this process. And I'll sit down on the phone with you for 30 to 60 minutes, whatever it takes, and we'll go through this process. We'll take the emotion out of it, and we'll start to take control of your business and get the things in place that you need to get in place. Do that now. It's free for a very limited time. Put your details in, click the button, and I look forward to seeing you soon.